I wrote the book because not only was I teaching German history, etc., but I also found out that my students, as well as people I talked to, knew very little about Hitler Germany, or rather, they only knew what the propaganda had told them. And so I felt it would be good to tell people the inside story as I experienced it. And I called it Tainted Blood because Hitler was wild about pure-blooded Germans, which is an impossibility anyway, but since we had part Jewish blood in ourselves, I called it Tainted Blood with a question mark. The title of the book points to the fact that Hitler thought my blood was tainted and that of my brother because we had some Jewish blood in ourselves. And that is why I have the subtitle, Memoir of a Part Jewish Girl in the Third Reich, 1933 to 1945. We were born, my twin brother and I, in 1923, and during the time of the inflation. And it's important to mention the inflation because I think World War I and the inflation set everything into motion, Hitler and whatever followed. Because during the inflation, when we were born, prices for small things went up into hundreds, thousands, millions, even trillions. And so I really didn't understand how our parents could cope with two newcomers when there was no money around. But I think my father had a client with foreign money, and that helped because foreign currency, especially dollars, were extremely valuable. My brother and I were very bored at home because our parents didn't have much time, and after we had moved to Isoldestraße, we had no friends around there. So, and all our friends and classmates were in the Hitler Youth, and especially in my class, she told me beautiful things of what they were doing. They were going on excursions and having sport events on Saturdays and didn't have to go to school. So I absolutely wanted to get into the Hitler Youth too. That means into the young group called Jungmädel, which are only from 10 to 14. So mother said, no, you can't because you're always sick. And I said, but I can go to school in all kinds of weather. She said, anyway, she couldn't tell us why we could not get into the Hitler Youth. So I just went away and got in on my own. I visited with my friend, school friend, I visited a so-called Heimabend, home evening, and met the leader of 20 girls, and was very impressed because they were all so nice, and the leader, she was so intelligent, I thought. And then I asked her, would you accept me? And she said, oh yes, we'll be glad to have you. But you have to fill out this form that I give you. Your parents have to sign it. I ran home instead of taking the bus. I ran because I was so excited and said, Mother, I'm now a member of the Jungmädel, the Hitler Youth. And she looked aghast. And then she said, okay, and she signed it, and Dad signed it, because my brother was already a member of the Jungvolk, that is a young group of the Hitler Youth, because a leader of his group had come and had asked for him to join, because he was such a good sports athlete, sportsman, and they wanted to have him, and father said, okay, okay. And that is why, when he was in, I wanted to be in. So my brother and I were both very happy in the Hitler Youth because there was no hatred, there was no propaganda that we detected. We were very idealistic because we tried to build up Germany and did our best with singing and excursions, and loved it. And I, after a short time, became a leader, my brother too, and so I was very, very busy. Every day of the week I was out doing something, either working on my own home evening or having flute groups or singing groups or going on excursions on weekends, etc., or having meetings with the other leaders to discuss things. So there was not a single night when I was home, and of course my school suffered tremendously. And I thought, oh well, you know, school is unimportant. Hitler Youth is very important. Then came one day when my brother and I had very, very poor report cards. And we were afraid of going home, and mother was she was crying. She cried all the time. And father, thank heavens, wasn't home yet. He was a lawyer and he was in court. And so we were afraid of the time when he would come back. Well, he came back in the evening, took a little nap, and then came in very soldier-like. He was an officer, which he mentioned time and again. And everything was different. And we were sort of baffled because he didn't sit in his usual seat. He didn't smoke his pipe, and etc. Then he had a big file of stuff in his hand, and he slammed it on the table, and he said, well, I have to tell you something, and we are Baakes. We don't worry about what people think about us, and we can take anything. And I thought, well, that is a funny introduction to our grades. Maybe we were thrown out of school. Wouldn't be bad, because Hans was a wonderful athlete, and we thought he could go to an Adolf Hitler school where they mostly did sports, and they were trained to be Hitler Youth leaders in the Hitler Youth or in the party. And I thought, I go to a private school, and that will be nice. I hated my school anyway. And then he said, well, and looked for the letter that he couldn't find at first, and said, here is a letter from the Reich Youth leadership, and they have kicked you out of the Hitler Youth. I couldn't believe it. What? Kicked us out? I mean, this was my life. I couldn't believe it. And he said, well, I'm very sorry, but they don't want you in there anymore. So, because you don't have pure blood. I said, what do you mean? We are not pure Aryan? He said, no, you look like it. You certainly look like it, more than Hitler or Goebbels or Goering or all these guys. But you are not. I said, are we, by any chance, Jewish Mischlinge? That means not pure blood. He said, yes, you are. And poor mom, I mean, she was sitting there, she was crying, and she said, oh, kids, it's all my fault, because I'm part Jewish. My mother was Jewish, but we didn't know anything like this would happen to us. And the father said, pull yourself together, Irma. He was very soldierly. And he said, it's nobody's fault, and we are not going to bend to the Mishpoke, a Jewish word for these guys. We are going to take it. And he also said, the leader from the party told me that maybe I should get divorced from you, Irma, and that would mean I would keep the kids. Now, this was the worst shock, at that time, the worst shock of my life, because father was very erratic, you know. He could be wonderfully funny, and he could laugh at something, and if we did the same thing, he could slap us in the face, you know. So to be with him, and he was so unpractical, mother did everything. And mother said, I agree to the divorce if all of you want it. Then father really lost his mind almost and said, Irma, you didn't ask for my permission. We never do anything like this, because when I married you, I promised I'd take care of you and be with you to the end of my life, regardless, come hell or high water, so we are going to stay together. And mother was very relieved, and I couldn't believe what was going on. I mean, the Hitler Youth was all I had, actually. I mean, it really, as I said before, was my life. Hans was not quite as enthusiastic, but now we were outcasts. I want to talk about the Olympic Games in Berlin, which happened in 1936, and Hitler was intent on making this a big propaganda effort. And for this reason, all anti-Semitic propaganda was stopped, such as nothing in the radio, nothing anymore in the newspapers. And there were signs, maybe at restaurants, sometimes at the entrances of towns, no Jews wanted here. So when the foreigners came, they said, oh, everything looks so nice and there is no anti-Jewish propaganda. What are they talking about? And then, of course, we were very successful, many, many medals for the Germans, with or without drugs, I don't know. And the most important person was Jesse Owens, who won many medals, 100-yard dash, 200-yard dash, and others. But one thing was tragic about the Olympic Games, because many of the Jews now thought, the anti-Semitic propaganda has stopped. Now we can stay in Germany. And that was their downfall. They either had to go into hiding or they were taken into concentration camps. Well, the question is, what effect should my book have on people? Basically, I just wanted to not really whitewash Germany, but tell the people who were totally influenced by propaganda without knowing very much about it, how very hard life was under the Nazis. Because, I mean, I already said I was kicked out of the Hitler Youth. We could not open our mouth. You find more about this in my book. Or else we were in deep trouble, and there was nothing you could do. So I think what I want is to get some more understanding between the former enemies. I mean, we're not enemies anymore at this time, and now I'm an American citizen. But still there is resentment. And I want this resentment to go away because there is an understanding of how we had to live and how basically why we fought so hard. We were deadly afraid of the Russians. And there is more detail about the Russians when they came to Germany. They were as brutal as can be, and I don't want to go into this right now. You can read up on it. So we wanted to win the war. I mean, here when I see students losing a football game, they are half dead with grief, you know. And so we had to lose a war, and it was getting closer and closer to losing the war. And we couldn't imagine to be conquered by, well, the enemy, especially not by the Soviets.
Secret